All right, what I'm going to do first is to focus on the rack of lamb. We're going to take this apart, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to give you the basics on Frenching a rack of lamb. First of all, we're going to take it out of the cryovac bag. Now, what's included in there? That's the chine bone, okay? This was split down the middle on the bandsaw, and then these chine bones were taken off. So they're always included. Since we bought it as an AP, as purchase item, the chine bone would be included.
Do those chine bones have a purpose, or are they just there to add weight?
You can use those in your sauce, roast them off with the rack to make a nice sauce with it. Yeah, if you're not going to use them, don't buy them. It's that simple. Now, my first step, when they took off the chine bone, they left behind some of this feather bone. There's a little bit of feather bone here. And I'm going to just very carefully tuck my knife in along those feather bones and peel them away. I want to be very cautious here because I don't want to cut into that eye muscle. That's a very valuable eye muscle, and I would be ashamed to ruin that. All right, so there's a little bit of feather bone. We'll pull that away. Then our next step, I'm going to remove this blade bone over the top. There's a blade bone here. It's a flat end of the scapula. I carve over the top of it, like so. See that? How it peels back? And then I cut underneath it. And I pull that away. Very pliable. You can use it for baking. No. All right. Now, the next step, after you remove that blade bone, we've gotten that out of the way, is to score. We're going to score through all of this, and I want to do a measurement of approximately 1.25 inches from the end of the eye muscle. Different chefs will have different measurements depending on what they're trying to create. You could go to 2 inches, you could go right down to the eye if you wanted to. Here we're going to go approximately 1.25 inches from the end of the eye. Turn it to the other side. The end of the eye is a little more difficult to find on this side. There's a little tiny bit of, there's the eye muscle, and there's a tiny bit of meat there. I'm going to measure from that line in between, so about 1.25 inches up from there, from here to here. So we're just about 1.25 inches up. And then on this side as well, 1.25 inches. Then you're going to connect those two markings, connecting straight through. Score all of the bones. Hear that sound, right? Then we're going to do what we call the sewing machine cut. We're going to actually pierce between each bone below. The idea of this is to free all of the membrane off of the bones, to completely clean the bones, so that when they cook, there's no residue left behind that's going to discolor. And then go back through and repeat your cut from this side. Completely cleaning all the membrane off, making a very straight line. The next step is to score down each bone, all right? Starting from the line here and scoring out towards the end. So cut down through, scoring each bone individually. See how the membrane starts to fold away? And now what you can do is open up each bone a little bit. Okay? And then you can pop out the bone. And I'm going to show you a couple different methods to do this. Get the bones to just pop through. Some chefs will turn it around like so and peel backwards, and they'll peel clean. You can see how the bones start to pop out of there. I'll show you a couple methods. One, you would hook your thumb around the outside and push down like that. See, if you get it just right from the top, it peels away quite nicely. But Frenching is a time-consuming thing. If you're doing hundreds of racks, you know, for a larger function, you might consider pre-Frenched. But realize sometimes when they come pre-Frenched, they're not always Frenched. Then you're doing a lot of scraping. Now you can see lots of debris still on those bones. What I'll do now is scrape this down. You might consider getting out your old boning knife for this. All those little strands have to be taken off, or else they'll curl and discolor. Now, the other method I'm going to show you, see, there you go. Now they're starting to look the way they should, right? You see how clean? There's still some more scraping to be done. The other method I'm going to show you involves a string and a little more preparation. This method, you can actually peel off the top of this fat layer. Instead of using it for leverage to peel with, as I did here, I would just peel this layer off and remove it. And then, making sure that it's very separate at the base, I will also cut between each bone, creating like a little finger of meat around each bone. All right, see that? Then I'll take my string, food grade butcher's twine, pull it in around the base, tie it once, very basic knot, place my palm here on the ribs, and then just pull as though I'm going to start a mower. Again, time consuming, right? So when you're considering the racks, which way do you buy it? You know, often you have to consider the labor involved in this. If you have to do a lot of racks, you have to either set enough time apart, you know, aside to do it, or buy them pre-Frenched. And even pre-Frenched, a lot of times they're not very clean. So you'll have to do a lot of scraping. Once you're done with cleaning the bones, then you'll peel off this top cap. See how that peels down? Always from the rib bone side down. There's a natural seam, and just a little brush of the knife, separating that natural seam apart. That, you can take that little bit of usable trim off. There's another little layer here. Some chefs will leave that on when they roast. Others will peel it off. You can give this a slight trim, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're going to roast and hold for a while, you might want to leave some of this fat on, or you could certainly take it down further, right down to the eye muscle if you want them completely cleaned. On the other side, there's one more thing. There's this little strip of connective tissue. This is called elastin. It's very yellow. It starts here in the middle of the back and runs all the way up through the neck. And it's like a thick yellow rubber band. You certainly wouldn't want to include this on the diner's plate. It's very elastic. Nature's bungee cord. No, the fell would be the exterior membrane on the outside. The fell would be this. See this thin layer here? That's the fell. And on the rack, it's not a problem because we're going to be taking it off. On the leg, it might be an issue if we're going to roast a whole leg. So we'll talk about that later. Just make sure there's no bone fragments left. And that's basically our cleaned rack of lamb. You can see this is the side I did with the string. This side I did with the peel method. Might want to scrape that down a touch more. Really shine them up. All of those little pieces need to come off. You can use also a bit of paper towel. Clean paper towel will also help clean them. And just pull like so. And there you have your rack, ready to be roasted or turned into a nice crown. You could tie an individual crown. It's a little bit difficult on this to get the nice shape. Usually you would put two together for the crown. All right, rack of lid.